Welcome to the Perfectly Flawed podcast, where we share stories and conversations with amazing people who've achieved extraordinary success by embracing their struggles and imperfections. They've achieved what they have, not despite their perceived flaws, but because of them as well. On this episode, we speak to Lewis Crompton about how he became an ordained minister at a very young age and then agreed to undertake interventions against his homosexuality. He believed he needed to be treated for it, as did all the people who loved and cared for him around him. He is now transformed entirely and recognises who he is. And he is married to a man who he loves, he's out, he's proud, and he is also transforming the world of work for so many people because he's teaching people how to become wealthy through trading in just half an hour every day. Okay, well, a very warm welcome to Lewis Crompton.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming on the Perfectly Flawed podcast.
Yes, looking forward to it.
I'm very excited to have you here. Lewis, I have met on a mastermind program, but also saw you speak on stage, and your story just blew me away. You were talking about, among other things, how you had I don't know whether to give this away or let people discover as they listen, but it involves ECT, electroconvulsive treatment. We'll find out what for.
Yeah.
But the very fact that you talked about it on stage made me realise that you're comfortable talking about it.
Yeah.
Maybe we can start with a funny kind of place, which is what made you be comfortable to come today and talk about something so sensitive?
I'm just a big believer that even the most painful parts of your journey, your history, can become forms of power. And if I can, even if I'm not 100% comfortable talking about it, I want to talk about it so I become more comfortable, and in that process it can help other people as well, is the hope. Great.
Well, and that's going to be quite a contrast to what you do now.
Yes.
You're the founder of Star Trading.
Yeah.
I asked you earlier what that's about, and it's about making people rich.
Yeah.
What's the mission there?
So the mission there is to ultimately help 1 million families to live with less stress and have more fun through financial empowerment. And that word empowerment for me is super duper important, because if I can, I always think about the old Oxfam advert, which is if you give a man a fish, they'll eat for a day. Yeah. But if you teach someone how to fish, they'll eat for the rest of their life. And so for me, I want to give people financial skills. Ultimately, what I do is I teach people how to trade financial markets, tax-free, less than 30 minutes a day, all of that stuff.
Right.
But that's broadening now as well to be more about financial skills, how to be good with your money, how to avoid debt, how to get out of debt, all of those really important things. Because I do believe that when we change the way people feel about money, and what I really mean by that is if we take out the emotional stress from their finances, so they are rich, and everyone's definition of rich is different, but if we can take that stress out of the equation, they can truly be themselves.
So do you think people have psychological blockers to being rich? I mean, rich in itself is, I can hardly say it, to be rich, it feels like I should be saying wealthy or affluent, but saying rich, sometimes it almost feels like it's kind of a bit rude.
Yeah, it does. It feels very loaded. And I think again, just thinking this through now, as to why does it feel loaded, I think it feels like a heavy word because it creates separation. So rich people, poor people,
the rich and poor,
it creates that divide.
Yeah.
So as much as I talk about being rich, my actual message is, and the heart behind what I do is really about financial peace. So it's about, and that's different for everybody. So depending on the type of lifestyle you want, depending on where you want to live, how you want to live, who you want to live with, the number of kids you want, for example, because they are not cheap, it's going to require a different level of income, a different level of wealth. And so finding your financial peace and what that figure is for you, that's really what I'm about.
What are some of the sort of results that you've had with people?
Do you know, it's really interesting because I run these training days at my house, and what we end up talking about all the time isn't about trading. It's about mindset, and it's about emotions, and it's about the blockers that we feel.
Yeah.
And I personally think that those sessions are some of the most life-changing that people have within my programs, I suppose. And I think the reason is because there is such emotional blocks to people. I mean, I've spoken to people who've got all this baggage when it comes to money from their parents or from their grandparents or from their partners, because their partners maybe have a very different view to money, but then that subsumes them. I don't know if that's the right word, but it kind of engulfs them, and they have to be subservient's also too strong a word, but submissive to the other person's either financial dominance or whatever it might be. And so there's a lot of emotional blocks that end up happening around money. And I think the core of it often comes down to how worthy you feel to have money. So if you don't feel like you deserve it for whatever reason, you don't feel like money is for you for whatever reason, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to take the opportunities where it's there. If you run a business, you're going to undercharge. If you have a job which is well paid, but you may never think you really deserve to have that well paid amount of money, or you think you're paid too much. I mean, who believes that? I don't know. But I think everyone's underpaid, to be honest. But you're never going to push for promotion or push for a pay rise or ask for a pay rise. I mean, when was the last time you asked for a pay rise? I mean, we run our own businesses, so we don't really ask for pay rise in the same way. But when was the last time we increased our fees for what we do? Even if it's 2-3 years down the line, that's 2-3 years worth of experience and knowledge and skill that's been developed.
Right.
Surely that's now worth more than it was 3 years ago.
So I'm sure you do a mix of some very practical skills that help people, and then this mindset piece. How is what you do different from, say, manifestation, where people are kind of saying, I want to bring in money? Where do you sit with those kind of approaches?
I think they're brilliant.
Right.
I think they're dead without action. So going back to my church roots, faith without deeds is dead.
Right.
So yes, let's manifest, let's set intention, yes, let's get emotionally energetic towards the creation of what we want to create. And a lot of that can be very helpful for rewiring our brain to actually receive and to actually accept and to actually feel worthy of the things that we want. So I think it's brilliant, but without taking then the action and the practical application, it's never going to happen.
Now, you said something really interesting, which is around mindset and how people get subsumed or become submissive to the pervading beliefs around money within their family or their partner or the people around them. And so they all kind of go, this is the amount I should earn. And it's that, like, we're the average of the 5 people that we hang out with. We earn a similar amount. We have similar morals, all of that sort of idea. But what struck me when you were talking about that is you have really good, I wouldn't say good, but superior knowledge and experience of being in a pervasive thought system. You mentioned the church earlier on. Yeah. I think this is where you know, a lot of your, this sort of shocking story, literally shocking, kind of came out of, didn't it? So, so talk us through that, your experience of being in the church, your mission there, how you got into it and what happened.
So I grew up in the church. My parents took me to church when I was a kid, but it was very much this is what we do. We live in this part of North London, which is where I grew up, and you go to this church and you go to this school. That was just what it was. I wouldn't say we were a particularly religious or spiritual or faith-filled household. Like, we didn't talk about the Bible, we didn't say grace before meals or anything like that.
So it's just a bit of going to church occasionally. Was it C of E?
C of E, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Church of England.
Yeah. So that were, and it was a lovely community to be part of. It was when I was about 11 years old that I went on a church summer camp, and I kind of discovered spirituality, I would say, within the church for the first time. What does that mean
versus
really
religion?
Good question. So for me, I would probably define spirituality as actually engaging with the divine, or actually engaging with something other than yourself. And so I felt like when I was 11, that's the first time I felt like I'd connected with this being, this deity, this spirituality. And I was kind of hooked from there. Right. And then when I was 15...
Was it like a physical experience, would you say?
Physical, emotional, yeah, all of those things.
So it's all in one moment.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Which is why it's so intoxicating.
I understand that, because I remember I went on it's called Crusaders. It was a camp when I was a kid, similar age, and this girl kind of, she was just like, oh, she must, I've been touched by the Holy Spirit or something, and I was just like really jealous, like she's had some extraordinary experience, and why aren't I? I just feel the same as I did before. Yeah,
and that's same for me at 11. I wanted what I saw other people experiencing, and then managed to have that for myself. Now, whether or not I'd worked myself up into a frenzy or if it was actually the divine,
who knows?
Who knows?
God knows.
God knows, yeah. And then when I was 15, it became more serious, and I was taking my religion more seriously. I was taking the religious teachings more seriously, and I was starting to seek out more spirituality and delve deeper into the realms of spirituality that you can go to in the church. So that's things like faith healings, speaking in tongues, more encounters with the divine, seeking out the angelic, finding people who could do that and wanting to learn from them.
So for those that have no experience or knowledge of that, even something like speaking in tongues, it sounds a bit freaky. It is a bit freaky. What is it?
So I think the technical term is glossolalia or something like that, and it's basically where you start speaking in another language without having previously known that language.
Is it a real language?
Sometimes yes, and that's the weird thing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sometimes it is. Other times it's kind of a bit of a made-up language, but it still can have it's very clearly a different language, if that makes sense. So does
it have meaning? Does the person know what they're saying? Or
sometimes yes, sometimes no.
So it could be a bit like channeling.
It is a bit like channeling, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
Okay.
So we're getting to the depths of church doctrine about it.
Yeah,
so,
right.
You can either speak in the language of men, which would be one which we'd understand,
right.
Or you can speak in the language of angels, which is when it's a language that isn't of this earth.
Okay. Wow. And then, so you were saying also there was the angelic realm that people believed in, and different
spirits. So whether that's angels or good spirits, or demons and bad spirits, and figuring out which was which that was present in the room.
So a lot of this stuff has been reappropriated into the sort of the New Age speak.
Yes, it has,
as well.
Yeah.
So interesting. Okay, so we can come back to some of these things and how there are some parallels.
Yeah.
So then what happened?
So where am I now? 18. So 18, 19, I trained as a therapist within the church. Again, the core of me has always been.
This is in America by now.
This was in America, yeah.
Yeah. So you found a church that was more akin to what you were into.
Yes. So through mutual contact in the UK, I met someone who'd been trained in this angelic realm through a church in America. So I made contact with a church in America and started spending my summers and holidays during university over there, training with them, learning from them, because I was just completely bought into this vision.
And were you studying at university? How was this funded?
I had a part-time job,
right.
So that would help pay for stuff. Also, because I was seen within the church as quite gifted within this realm, people would pay for me to go to America and things like that, and continue my training, my education, and that kind of thing.
So you were really looked after, you were really cared for, you were seen as somebody
massively
of real value in that environment.
And felt very, very loved by that community as well. So then when I was 18, 19, trained as a counsellor within that context, and was then growing an international business, working with very intense cases, people who'd been through various different forms of abuse, people who'd been ritually abused, talking to people who've been buried alive and brought back out, then buried alive, and all sorts of horrible things that they'd experienced. So
sacrificial type
stuff, SRA type stuff.
What's SRA?
Satanic ritual abuse.
Right.
So very, very horrible stuff, which caused a lot of dissociation. So then working with multiple psychological parts and dissociative personalities, and surprise in my early 20s I kind of burnt out emotionally.
Well, you're very young to be doing that kind of work. And what did your parents
young.
think at the time when they saw you up in America doing this?
They didn't entirely know everything that was going on,
right.
but they were definitely concerned. I think they very much felt like I was part of a cult.
Yeah.
My church journey, and as I got deeper and deeper into it, caused more and more separation between me and my parents. They didn't really understand. I was so sold on Christianity, and within that context, that anybody who wasn't Christian, it became very almost difficult to hold relationship with them, because it was so separate to what I was about and what I was trying to do with my life.
Why do you think you were so driven at that point to get so immersed into the church?
I think there's a couple of things here. So with my own experiences and discovering through that therapy learning journey and training to be a counsellor, discovered I had my own childhood abuse, that one of the outworkings of that was seeking black and white. Right. And so wanting a worldview that was black and white, that said this was wrong and this was right, and this is the framework in which you can operate in. So
which is natural. If someone's traumatised, they don't have clarity. It's so confusing because someone's transgressed a boundary that's not appropriate, and so you're thinking, what's right, what's wrong?
And grey feels unsafe.
Right.
So I wanted black and I wanted white, because then I knew the realms of operating and I could stick within them.
Yeah. So you wanted real guidance, strong rules.
Yeah.
And a world in which there was good and bad as well, I suppose. Yeah,
exactly. And so that fed into this desire. I've also, I think I just am the type of person that I'm kind of all or nothing, which funny enough is also a trauma response. So I just wanted to go for this thing, and I always want to take it as far as I can take it. I love seeing things grow, I love seeing things develop, and I love the idea of having impact, as positive an impact as I possibly can. So that's why I trained as a counsellor, because I wanted to be able to impact other people in a way that I felt like I'd been positively impacted before, which is...
You clearly have a gift. I mean, you must have had a gift for it, because you're, clearly very sensitive and very intuitive and understand other human beings really well and can communicate very powerfully. So you had all those kind of innate skills that you were able to develop in that way. Yeah.
And that the church celebrated.
Wonderful.
And so allowed me to practice them, allowed me to use them, allowed me to be myself in that context.
Okay.
There's other parts of myself that I then had to hide and shut down and dissociate from, to allow me to operate in this way over here.
So tell us about that.
So it turns out I'm attracted to men, love them, think they're great. Well, actually, some of them are very hard work, but So turns out I was going to say I was gay, like I'm not anymore.
Yeah, but you just had this sense, I'm attracted to men. You just had this.
Honestly, it really, really grew. And my awareness of it. So part of the church context I was in was very Puritan.
Yeah.
Very, very Puritan. Very like the spiritual side was very much tied to being very Puritan. So you could only go into the depths of spirituality if you were super pure. So I didn't look at pornography. I didn't even touch myself. So all sexuality was completely suppressed.
And that came from the Puritans that came over to America? To these...
I would say that's kind of the root of it originally. But because of the nature of the spiritual context that and worldview that I was part of, angels, demons, good activities makes space for God, bad activities, how they've defined bad, makes space for the devil, and leaves you open to being demonized, and having demons, which therefore need to be cast out.
So when you started to, so your entire sexuality was suppressed, as you say. You couldn't touch yourself. There's nothing. It was just okay. Yeah. So when you started to have any kind of urges, whether even to a man or a woman, did you feel it would have been wrong in that context? Would it?
So I remember being 15 and becoming aware of the fact that I was kind of attracted to men, and just shut it down because we'd been told in church that same-sex attraction wasn't God's plan. Yeah. So I was like, oh, okay, well, that can't be right. So I'll just shut that out. I remember actually fancying a guy when I was 17, and just told myself it was because he was like a brother to me. Right. Yeah. And so I caged it in that and then shut it down. Yeah. And then it was only when I was in my early 20s that I suddenly was like, hang on a second. This isn't going away. Yeah. And I've done all the praying I can to get rid of it. I'd been asked to go through conversion therapy and been willing to go through conversion therapy and all the stuff that came with that. So, yeah, it's very intense.
So that brought you to, so yeah, tell us about the conversion therapy, because I think that's the thing that really,
Yeah.
I mean, that's really shocking for people, just that you actually underwent it of your own volition.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how much you felt that there was something wrong with you and there was something to be ashamed of. That's, I mean, extraordinary.
Yeah. Well, my whole worldview
Yeah.
and my whole peer group
Yeah.
and network and everything said it was wrong to be gay.
Yeah.
And so how could I have these feelings? They can't be me. They can't be from me.
Yeah.
So I was convinced that they must be from the devil. And if I ever gave in to them, that meant the devil had won.
And had you ever given in to them?
Yes, very lightly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very, very lightly.
Yeah.
And then I had to repent. I'd have to tell a church leader or a peer, and we'd have to pray together to cleanse my soul, cleanse my spirit, and make sure that the devil didn't have a foothold.
Yeah.
And then disconnect from any demonic presence that might have taken residence because I'd done whatever.
I mean,
looked
so
at a
cruel
naughty mag.
to yourself, wasn't it, that you had to just tell yourself that part of you was so wrong, and you had to try and separate yourself. It's just awful. Yeah.
So that sense of it being wrong and it can't possibly be who I am or a part of me is why I self-selected really or agreed to go through conversion therapy,
which involved what?
Various different things, some individual one-to-one stuff and lots of repenting, and repenting means turning away from, so you'll never do it again. Cleansing my generational line of anything bad spiritually that had opened up the doorway to me therefore having these temptations. Having people cast demons out of me. I remember at one point I was at a church and I was surrounded by people kind of half shouting to get the devil out of me, and that kind of thing.
So all these people that loved you and cared for you and you felt loved and cared for were actually telling you a fundamental part of you was a demon, as opposed to maybe a really delightful and wonderful part of you to be celebrated and enjoyed.
Which led to a lot of emotional turmoil. And it was only when I was then, that technically went on for years, that whole journey. And I remember being 20, I came out at 26, but it was before then. I think I was 24. And it's 24 is when I first started learning how to trade. And again, looking back, I was using it as an escape. I didn't realise it at the time, but I was using it as an escape. And it was when I was 24, late 24s, probably 25 actually, because it was after I'd left my job, I think, to trade full time. I just had this moment in bed and I'd been crying myself to sleep for however long. And I just went, this isn't worth it. It can't possibly be worth it. I've done everything I can possibly think of to not have these feelings, to not have these emotions, and I still want to bite that man's bum on the train. So if I'm still feeling that after all the things I've done, including starving myself at points we call it fasting in the church, to gain, they wouldn't say it's to gain more spiritual power, but it's to gain more spiritual power, to get a one up on the devil and invoke God in a stronger way to change these parts of me, and none of it had done anything.
And being shot, so you had to go and have something clamped on your head? And
mine wasn't that bad, thankfully, so it wasn't quite to that extreme. But yeah, all of the therapies to change the way your brain operates and fires. And it was I just got to the point where I'd been crying myself to sleep. I was like, this is not working. And they have this phrase in the church, which is count the cost of following Jesus. And I just went, the cost isn't worth it. It's not worth it anymore.
Wow.
And I couldn't see
that was a dark night of the soul.
Yeah, it really was a dark night of the soul. And I remember even describing it as that at the time. And I was like, oh, that was funny. Just got emotional. But I remember thinking in that moment.
That's allowed.
Yeah, I know. I remember thinking in that moment I failed because I'd given in. And I'd given in to the devil. And I remember I was at my parents' house. So I was staying at their house at the time. and I just felt like I'd completely failed. But I was like, I can't carry on this process because I don't see where it ends well or ends in happiness or in joy. And I was like, God cannot be wanting me to be this miserable for the rest of my life. It doesn't make sense. So that's when I was like, I'm going to explore this part of me.
I think for anyone who has to deal with a whole society or a whole community or even just a strong family idea and finally say, this is not who I am. And if it means I'm not going to be accepted, the cost is too great, and I'm prepared to not be accepted by this group. But it's one of the hardest things that any human being ever has to do, is to stand up for themselves and risk being ousted from the people, the group or the community that they're part of, and just be ousted and not know what happened. So I think it shows such bravery, and maybe you had no choice at that point. But I mean, I think it's as traumatic as, you know, many other traumas that we can go through. It's up there on trauma, because to finally say, I vote for myself. I've got no choice. This is who I am, and I've tried everything to be accepted and loved and appreciated. And you know, you could only have been accepted for being the person you're not, rather than the person you are. Which,
I'm not that good an actor for that long a period of time. It just, and that's why I think even now I would rather, I find it very hard not to be authentic now. Very, very hard, because I spent so many years not being inauthentic, but hiding and shutting down and being full of shame, which automatically puts a guard up. And I'm trying to, I still sometimes fight it, but I try to be as authentic as I possibly can, even with all my flaws. So,
So do you still feel a sense of shame around being gay?
Yes, I do. And it manifests in different ways. I'm married now to a wonderful, wonderful man. I can imagine I said woman there. That would be, shock. It worked. Married to a wonderful man.
A delayed reaction.
Finally. It comes out in different ways. So one of the ways it comes out for me, and I had this conversation with my husband, because he doesn't have any shame about it. He grew up gay, never really been bothered about it. His family were never bothered about it. Wasn't in the church. So wasn't really ever shame attached to it for him, which is amazing, but that really grates on me.
Does it?
Yeah, but from like a
because he doesn't have any awareness. He doesn't have any awareness of the people that think it's wrong. Or,
and so therefore doesn't think about certain situations in the way that I find myself thinking about them. So for example, if we go to we're at a hotel and we're staying in the gym, and the gym has got a sauna in the men's section, which some of them do, versus like in a public section, then if we're sat in there and there's somebody else in there, another guy in there, he'll start to talk to me, as in my husband will talk to me, and it makes me angry because I feel unsafe. And so I start to panic that this person's now going to know that we're gay because he's talking about what we're going to get from Tesco. I'm like, stop talking. Don't talk to me.
And then he'll feel uncomfortable because he's in a sauna with two gay men.
Exactly. And then I overly worry about the other person's feelings and thoughts, which is really just, again, me masking my own shame by then projecting how somebody else might feel, and to justify me feeling this way because of somebody else was actually, it's my issue.
Well, what's really great about it, though, of course, is then all of this is seeing the light of day in your own consciousness, and you're able to let go of it. And also what struck me was, because he feels no shame at all, that must also kind of purge it from you as well at times, where you've got a model of somebody who doesn't feel shame, so you can kind of go, oh, what's it like not to?
Which I do learn from, but I'm a slow learner on that stuff because it's years of entrenched,
of course,
feeling. And when my parents and my relationship now is really, really good. But when I was in the church, it wasn't as good. And I think part of the reason it wasn't as good is because it couldn't be, because they could never actually be in relationship with me, because they never actually knew who I was. And I didn't really know who I was. I wasn't letting those elements of who I was come out. So how could I have a true relationship with these people who want to get to know me, but I don't want them to get to know me because I'm scared of what that might mean. And so then unpicking that after I came out, and there were some very tricky conversations, of course there was, because they have a whole perception of who you're going to be and what you're going to be, and then you let them down, or you feel like you're letting them down, but even if you're not letting them down, they still have to readjust their
Are you
view
talking
and
about
perception.
you being gay, or are you talking about you being in the church?
Both, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so when I was in the church, they didn't understand what was going on there, so we couldn't have conversation. But because I was in the church, I was also hiding my sexuality from myself as much as from them. So when I came out to them, they were like, what is going on? You're a Christian, you say this isn't acceptable as a Christian, but now you're saying you're gay. Well, I came out as bi because it felt like a halfway house.
Right.
So it's like, I'll test the waters on this one and we'll see how it goes. And so they didn't understand. So even then coming out, I wasn't being fully honest and fully transparent, but I was still figuring myself out. So I couldn't be fully transparent. So that is why we end up having some tricky conversations. And I think sometimes people forget when they come out, especially late, like I was 26 when I came out, that's 26 years of life that my parents have gotten to know the version of myself I've been presenting to them.
Yeah.
They need to have a little bit of time. It's okay that they need a little bit of time to readjust that vision of me, that perception of me, of the person that they relate to, and what their future's going to look like. And so now they're great. Not that they weren't great before, but our relationship is great now. They absolutely love my husband. My dad's finally got a lad to go to the pub with, which is my husband.
Right.
Whereas I just sit at home with my mum and have hot chocolate, which is far better for me. Yeah.
So do you think your husband's laddish is a bit more of a lad because of the lack of shame, so he can actually lean into that laddish side of him? Is that?
Yeah, I think it's just who he is. He is a bit of a lad. He's a rugby boy,
Right.
At least was a rugby boy. Hasn't played rugby in a very long time.
Yeah.
Likes going to the pub.
Yeah.
That's just always been who he is. But he's never had to create a persona. I think some people who are growing up gay and it's not okay for them to be gay, they create this particular persona around being gay, and he's never had to do that. I created a persona around not being gay, and I had to learn to unlearn that to be truly who I was. I mean, I mean, not that there's really stereotypes anymore, but I remember asking my parents for a sewing machine, and I wanted to dance and sing. I didn't want to go to the pub. I didn't want to watch the football. Those weren't the things I was interested in. But again, I minimized all of that stuff as I grew up, and I realized that they were clues to what my sexuality might be.
Yeah.
And so I started shutting those things away.
So do you think you went more into the kind of like archetypal gay interest, things like you were saying, sewing or dancing, whatever? You just...
And this is actually where the church was
persona.
great, because I could kind of do those things, a lot of those things, from a Christian spiritual perspective, without people realizing my sexuality. I mean, I feel like I'm massively stereotyping behaviors and things like that, but they were true to me at the time. Yeah.
Well, I suppose, but it's quite interesting that your husband's from a very typically laddish kind of environment, like rugby. I mean, there would have been a time, I don't know, 40, 50 years ago where you absolutely couldn't be gay and play rugby. I mean, you could have said that would have been the same as being in the church. It would have been so unspeakable.
Definitely. Yeah, and he's to add to that, he's actually a police officer, but he says he's never had any problems within the police or any homophobia or anything like that. Even though we know there is a lot of homophobia in institutions like that, he's maybe just been fortunate that he's never been subject to any of that stuff, or maybe he's just not been aware of it when it has been happening. Well,
yeah, maybe, and you know, it's sort of almost like that sort of, are you sending out victim vibes, or shame vibes, which, as we know, you know, from the playground, the people get bullied in the playground. It's the people that send out that, whereas the one, if he's swaggering around quite confidently, and it doesn't feel that there's something to be ashamed of, there's nothing for anyone to pick on, is there?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Mind you, I sound like I'm victim blaming with that. I didn't mean it like that, but I'm just.
But there's studies done that if people have been victims, they even have a particular way in which they walk, and people who are predators who prey on victims, they will be able to pick out that walk subconsciously, and they'll attack someone who's already been a victim, because there's something in their demeanor, something in the energy they give off, something in the way that, literally the way that they walk, that says, I am a victim, and it makes them more likely to be a victim again, which is awful. And again, it's not blame, it's just an interesting truth that happens because of the things we've experienced. It's
like, well, the world sort of mimics or mirrors the way we perceive ourselves. So we perceive ourselves as, for example, back to becoming rich, or becoming wealthy. I still can't say it. We have to, if we believe we are worth it, we're worth being paid a certain amount, then we're much more likely to attract that money, aren't we?
Oh, massively. And again, going back to my church times, one of the things Jesus said in the Bible is, as a man believes in his heart, so he is. And I love that, and I think about that, and I use that all the time. If what you believe about yourself will become your reality, and you can choose to change how you believe about yourself and about your situation, which is a little bit like fake it till you make it, in one sense. But how do you change the way you believe? You choose to change the way that you believe, which is why, again, I'm a big fan of manifestation in that sense. I'm a bigger fan of affirmations, because affirmations rewire your subconscious. And that's why monks, and whether in the church or out the church, they use mantras. And
Buddhist monks, Christian monks, use mantras and chants.
These mantras and these chants, they change the way that your brain is wired on a subconscious level. So that's why they're so powerful.
And how does that happen? Do you know?
Scientifically, no. But my understanding of it in my own life is, there is a statistic of you need to hear so many positives to counteract a certain number of negatives, and it's annoying that you need a lot more positives to counter out a negative. So if you have a negative belief about yourself, like say that, but let's turn it into a money thing, I'm always going to be poor. If that's your wiring and that's under the surface of everything you do, everything you operate, if you can change that under the surface wiring by using a mantra that it says, I am rich, I attract money, I am wealthy, I have more than I need, I live in abundance. If you can repeat, I don't know how, but it sinks down into your subconscious, because you've rewired the pathways in your brain on a subconscious level to have that belief and to operate under that new system.
We were just talking just before we came in about what God kind of means to us now, and I was just saying, well, to me it's God is love, God is truth, God is beauty, that those three concepts, and that's because I've heard them. I've heard that phrase, in church and songs or whatever. God is love, God is truth, God is beauty, praise him. So that's kind of how I think of it. So much of those ideas and ideologies kind of infiltrate and sit within us, which leads me to my next question with you, which is, you've gone from being completely steeped in the church and in sort of theology and in the kind of Christian teachings, and then you've moved out, and you're now talking about mindset approaches, so that we could think of these as sort of from the personal development world. How much did your Christian experience and teachings and knowledge help you and support you in transitioning, and how much do you still draw on today, or is it sort of wholesale new? Is it just all personal development, new age type?
Yeah, very good question, because I think a lot of the personal development world really is drawn from a lot of Christian principles, and if you read the Bible with that lens, it's crazy how much there is. So even talking about mantras and things like that, the New Testament talks about having the mind of Christ and being changed by the renewing of your mind. What we're really talking about there with mantras is renewing our mind to a particular way of thinking. Whether that's the mind of Christ or not is, at this point, neither here nor there. So I think my church background has massively helped, massively impacted in a positive way. And even all the negative stuff that I've experienced, I wouldn't change for the world, because it's made me a way more compassionate, way more understanding, way more caring person.
And those are things that Jesus stood for anyway, aren't
Yeah.
they? Sort of forgiveness and compassion and acceptance of everybody. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think my church background has made it very possible for me to do what I do now with the depth in which I can do it. And that is absolutely beautiful. I think one of the things I noticed, though, when I kind of stepped away from churchy things and more into the personal development world, and self-help and self-development, all of that, is a lot of the rhetoric is actually the same. And we talked about this before, but then that rhetoric is saying there is something wrong with you and you need to do something about it. So in the church, it is maybe original sin and you need to repent, you turn back to God, you're sinful, blah, 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 blah. In the personal development world, it's you are not yet your best self and you need to be your best self. Otherwise, there's something wrong with you. So they both are operating from this premise of actually there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
And so I kind of jarred with most of the personal development world for quite a while, and seeing certain people who we all know are like big names in that space just do absolutely terrible things in the name of personal development or self-help. And there's a documentary on Netflix about one of these people, and one of
maybe that's seen as the godfather of personal development.
And he does this thing with this wonderful woman who's suffered abuse at the hands of men in her family. And he just appoints random strangers, random men in the audience to be her new family members. And I was like, what are you doing? You're just creating a fun little moment for the benefit of this crowd off of this woman's trauma. It was just absolutely shocking to me. Absolutely shocking.
But I think it was particularly shocking to you, given the fact that you have also been on the receiving end of a kind of a mass group experience where you were kind of singled out to be someone that needed this treatment and this help and this support. And in that context, it leaves somebody with very little room to say, no, I'm not feeling it, or actually I haven't made this shift. I mean, imagine in the environment you just said on that film, and I know exactly who you're talking about, but that person was expected to, sometimes you see these things, they come up on stage, they have an intervention, or they have an intervention sitting in the audience, and they have no choice but to say, yes, I've completely changed, and I'm gonna. And sometimes they believe it for themselves. But in that moment, they have no other choice, and you didn't have a choice.
No, you don't. You don't have any choice. Well, I say that there is always choice,
but there's so much pressure.
So much pressure, and to go against the people who you feel love you.
They want the best for you. From where they're coming from. So there's no. It's
no malice in it whatsoever. And I think that
Exactly.
sometimes people need to remember that it's when the organization is doing that to someone, they're not, in their heads, they're not doing it to someone, they're doing it for someone, and it's truly from a place of love. But it is very, very difficult to go against that flow. Very, very difficult.
Huge. I mean, I think I'd love to talk more about group and peer pressure and all those kind of dynamics, but I do want to just put in this thing about original sin before we move on. It's just something I heard yesterday, and when the Bible came about, original sin was where it started. Adam and Eve in the garden, and original sin. So we were seen to be fundamentally flawed, and that's a lot of Christian ethos is built up on that. We're fundamentally flawed. But prior to original sin was the original blessing. We were created in the image of God. And we were whole and perfect. And we had an opportunity to come and experience material reality in the image of God and experience what the world's like. So I just bring that up because it's so relevant to being perfect, the whole perfectly flawed idea, because I think many people resonate with this idea of feeling I'm fundamentally flawed. and then recognizing over time, if we can get back to something even greater and more wonderful within us. I had this when I trained as a hypnotherapist, and the unconscious, which, I mean, Jung will think of it that way, that there's something even greater and purer and more wonderful that's available for us. Yeah. And we're limiting ourselves with our, and maybe that's the original sin. Maybe our first, it's our first time of not accepting the majesty of who we are and the magnificence of who we are. Fundamentally, we're each wonderful souls and spirits. We've got something so magnificent, but we come in this human condition and we just become a very small part of that. So I know you had some words on what little God. So there's this people do forget who they are, and even if we're going back to a Christian context, I remember doing some research and some reading, and there's this very strange story in the Old Testament from it's basically about, it's called the Witch of Endor. I think it's Endor, although I feel like that's a Star Wars reference. The Witch of Endor.
Yeah, doesn't it sound Star Wars?
It does, definitely.
So it might not be Endor, it might be something, but it's the Witch of somewhere. Okay. And she is asked by King David, who, by the way, was an adulterer, who got some woman's husband killed so he could sleep with her. But he was still used by God. So if God is happy to use one of those types of people, surely he's okay with using other people as well. So, side note. So anyway, he goes to this witch.
So you're saying God isn't that, he's not that discriminating.
He's not that discriminatory, no. So David goes to this witch because he's looking for advice from a previous prophet or a previous king. I think it's King Saul. He's looking for wisdom from, because he's now running the country. He wants to have some help. And she summons the spirit of King Saul, who's passed to heaven or wherever it may be. And she says, who is this I see before me? And she's shocked. And the words in the original language are Elohim, little Elohim, Elohim meaning God. So she's like, who is this little God that I see before me? And it's the same word, Elohim, as we would use for big God. The God, the creator. And so we are, in our spirit, in who we are, created in his image as Elohim, as little gods. So we are of the big God as a little God, but of hers, depending on your theological persuasion, DNA. And so I loved that, because okay, the core of me isn't this original sin thing. The core of me is I am a little God that's in the image of the big God. And I thought that was really beautiful.
That is lovely. In fact, last night I was talking, I did a speech called The Genius of the Genuine You. And while I was researching that speech, I discovered that so our genius is something transcendent. It's a higher level of creativity. And whether intellectual creativity or just talent, something beyond the norm. But in ancient times, we would have a genius. It's not that we were a genius. You would have a genius, and the genius was some sort of divine force or guidance. You could call it like a higher soul or something greater and more wonderful. That was our genius. We had a genius. Sometimes it's called a daemon as opposed to a demon. They might battle it out. But also, that's where we get the word genie.
Okay.
A genie.
Yeah.
So that genie is something that wants the very best for us and kind of can lift us to our fullest and most wonderful, extraordinary potential. And the stem of it, a genie, comes from gen, which is generative, generation, create, produce, give birth to.
Wow. Yeah.
And so it was really interesting researching all of that. But I just think it's sort of, we talked about how there's the sort of the Christian way of speaking, and then there's maybe other forms, but essentially so much of it is saying something similar, which is that we have something more transcendent and more wonderful to tap into than the limiting
Completely.
notion of who we are today and that identity that we...
Oh, big time. And I'm a big believer that every single person on the planet has that uniqueness, that gift, that genius in them. And I think this is where, to kind of bring it full circle, is why I'm so passionate about teaching people how to make money. Because if they're not having to worry about money, think about what they can do. Think about how much of their genius they can go and explore and experience. And my genius is not trading. I'm not passionate about trading in and of itself as a skill set or anything like that. I'm passionate about what it does for other people.
You're passionate about people having wealth, money.
I'm passionate about people having freedom. I'm passionate about people having choice. And unfortunately, the world we live in needs money to be able to do that. And so if
it's your pass card
it is.
For life.
Yeah. And if you're an artist and the way that you create is through acrylics and canvases, you're going to have to pay for those things. So where are those things going to come from? And if you've got trading or investment or whatever it might be generating you money in the background that allows you to do the things you're truly passionate about without financial stress, without financial worry, and without that thing you're passionate about having to put food on the table, I just think that changes everything for individuals and therefore society as well.
Why do you think the kind of self-development, self-help world is sort of so anti-money often? You know, that it's almost like seen as a lower form than more spiritual.
It's a good question. Yeah, I think people are uncomfortable with money. I think money has been abused in the past as well.
What do you mean by that?
Well, if we go right back to history of say the UK, which was based on the feudal system, those who had money were basically abusive of those who didn't. Right. And so people think capitalism is that same abuse. Oh, you must be making money because you're abusing other people or you're ripping other people off. No, true capitalism is adding value into society or a community or a group of people and being rewarded for that. You don't have to gouge those people in order to do so. And I think sometimes, particularly in say the coaching industry, which is very much tied with self-help and personal development, there's almost an expectation of, but you're helping me, why should I be paying you for helping me? It's like, well, doctors help you, they get paid. Nurses help you, they get paid. Police help you, they get paid. Not enough, in my opinion. Any of these people don't get paid enough, in my opinion. If firefighters come to your house and they're saving your life by putting a fire out of your house, they get paid. But because it's knowledge or emotion based, which maybe feels less tangible to people, they therefore devalue the less tangible. So I think there's an element of that goes on in terms of why people do that. But
we devalue ourselves as well. I mean, I used to be a therapist, and I worked with people in addiction recovery, and I hardly made a penny, and I felt it was wrong of me to negotiate for more, and yet people were saying, you know, you've saved my life. But it didn't seem okay for me to ask for money for that.
And it can be tricky. So if you're working with vulnerable people who traditionally don't have a lot of capital,
there's that as well.
There is that element as well. And so then it's like, okay, I feel like I deserve and warrant more income, but I'm not going to be able to get that from these people that I'm serving and doing an incredible job serving these people. So then it becomes a really interesting and tricky question. So where can I generate that income that then allows me to do this work, maybe less hours, but almost pro bono in order to help and serve them? The other balance we also have to have, and when I was a counsellor in the church, I learned very, very quickly people who paid for sessions versus people who didn't pay for sessions had a very different experience. So those who paid for their sessions showed up on time, they did the work, and they made the most out of the sessions and their time with me. Those who didn't pay because they were getting it pro bono or someone else was paying or whatever it might be, didn't show up, didn't do the work, and didn't get the most out of the session. Now that's
the exchange, some sort of exchange of energy wasn't there. Yeah,
exactly.
Do you think about money as being do you kind of hold that money as an energy type idea?
Yes. Yeah, an unlimited one. There's always money in the world. Money isn't real. It's actually, particularly nowadays, money is not real. And I think the quicker people get their head around the fact money doesn't actually exist, it is just an energy. And what I mean by that is we used to be tied to gold. So gold used to be the finite resource, which is why gold had value and it still has value because it's a finite resource. But money in the bank doesn't actually exist.
Well, it was then IOU notes, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then now it's just figures.
It's just figures on a screen. Yeah.
But I mean, that sounds really crass, though, to somebody who literally can't pay the bills and doesn't have electricity and, you know, whatever else. So, you know, how do you equate that if you're saying money isn't real in one hand, but somebody else is actually having a genuine struggle to feed their kids or provide for them?
Yeah. Money still isn't real, but the applications and use of that money is very real and very tangible.
Right.
So first of all, I don't think anybody should be forced into that situation. And I think there's actually something wrong in society that we have situations where people are in that position. I really don't think it's right. Again, I think it gets slightly complicated because I'm a big believer in personal power and personal choice. And I also believe that every single person can change their situation in some way. So it's very tricky without going into specific people's situations. But I do believe that every single person can change their financial situation. And part of that is belief and part of that is action.
Yes. I mean, I suppose I've got we could go into this very deeply because I've got a few thoughts around, you know, what happens if you're a very, say, old person who's trying to feed their electric meter and doesn't have the, you know, maybe wherewithal or ability. And there are exceptions, and I'm not saying that I disagree that it's not real, but they are in that situation, you know.
Yeah, and I think that for me goes into a conversation about ability and capability. So those who are capable in society versus those who are incapable.
Right.
Whether that's because of, well, many different reasons.
Yes.
Age, mental capacity,
Yeah.
health, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And those who are capable, I do believe, should be looking after those who are not capable.
Yeah.
So the fact that we've had, I'm not going to go too political here, but we've had a Labour government who are traditionally pro-working class, pro-looking after people, they've taken heating away from the elderly, is absolutely baffling to me. And if that's not a wake-up call to people who are able and capable to do something different with their finances and change their financial situation, then I don't know what is going to be a wake-up call.
Well, it strikes me that throughout all of this, you've always had a very strong sense of community and how we need to care for our fellow man and woman around the world, whether they're within our close-knit family or in the broader context of our society. So what does perfectly flawed mean to you?
Really good question, and I intentionally didn't try and think of an answer until this point to see what pops out of my brain at this point. And I think what pops out of my brain at this point is that any flaw you perceive you have shouldn't stop you from moving forward, because it's a part of who you are. And perfectly flawed means your flaws are perfect as well. So my weaknesses have actually served me in lots of different ways. So a very small example of that is I'm definitely ADHD, although I've never bothered to go and get diagnosed, and I don't want to be diagnosed, because all the wonderful coping mechanisms that my brain has created in the midst of that flaw have meant I'm really, really good at the way that I operate in the world and the way that I help people. So my flaws perfectly help me show up and do what I do in the world and don't stop me from moving forward. If I was to let them, then I would be robbing the world of my flaws, which are actually
I
really
love that.
beneficial.
So it's sort of celebrate your flaws because they're your greatest assets, and I hope you do that with being gay.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. I love it now. Yeah.
And that's a really nice, full circle that you really embrace it.
Yeah.
And it's something that you're joyful about.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. The original meaning of the word gay.
Yeah. Happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just one final question, which is, what advice would you give the younger Lewis, or what would you say to the younger Lewis?
What would I say to the younger Lewis? Again, questions like this always kind of stump me, because I think sometimes there's an expectation to change something about the journey, and I wouldn't want to change anything. I really wouldn't. So I think my encouragement would be just keep going. It's okay. It will work out. And I think I've always kind of had this innate sense of it will all work out. It will all be fine. Yeah. And so just keep believing that and keep trusting that. I'd probably tell myself to be bolder and just enjoy it. And I think actually I need to tell myself that now.
Be bolder and enjoy it.
So yeah, I think that's what I probably say. I think because of the context I've come out of, I can be a little bit overly serious. And I'm trying to get back to that fun, playful side, which a lot of my friends would say, what do you mean you're too serious? But I can feel that seriousness internally, and I'm trying to release that and be more joyful again and just a bit silly and have a bit more fun in the whole process of everything. Yeah, just be more gay. Yeah. Do you know, it's funny, one of my intentions at the start of the year was to be more gay.
Was it?
Yeah, particularly like how I dress. I've always not that I dress particularly gay, but I kind of want to dress a bit more gay. I want to, and what I mean by that, and again, that's going to be different for everyone, but it's just a little, again, bit more bold. Yeah. And not worry about, does this person like this print or that print? And if I like the print, I'm going to wear it and not care what the perception is. So I don't need to hide. If someone's like, oh, that's a bit gay. Yeah, it is. And I love it. So I just want to be more okay with that. So yeah, it's funny you say that.
I totally love that. I just love, let's just, each of us lean into kind of whoever we are, and other people may not like it, whether that's clothing choices or the way we behave. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming today. It's been wonderful to talk to you and hear about your experiences, and it's been a joy.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you to Lewis Crompton, and thank you for listening. I was really struck by how painful it must be to reject such a natural part of yourself, and how everybody around him was also telling him that part of him was wrong. How painful it must be to not be able to embrace all of who you are. And I'm so pleased he's made this huge transformation and is now proudly going out into the world, being true to himself and having such a positive impact on so many people around him.